Lights.
All right. Yeah, over you right a little bit. I think the stoves. Yes.
Right here.
Press one of them.
5. Hey, that's what 5 looks like.
All right.
Try 9. Let's try 1.
That looks better.
1 means really bright. 10 means nothing. Well, you wonderful diehards who have sat through a film, very appreciated. I saw a lot of people getting caged out to dinner, and the wonder that is DerbyCon. I'm not offended if during this small discussion here you have to get up because there is a party going on 2 inches from your head. I can totally see not wanting to be in a lecture hall. Like I prefaced it before, I was called about this in January 2012. I shot footage from May till probably February of 2013, with the vast majority of it being the weekend of Defcon with my crew of 6, and then edited it from basically August of 2012 until June of 2013 for a premiere at Defcon 21, where it appeared to have been well received. So there you go. If anyone has any questions about any aspect of the production or anything else, I'm more than happy to answer them, as per the Q&A part of this. Oh, don't be afraid. I love talking about this film. Go ahead.
Well, I think more of a comment than a question. I think capturing just the general feel of what the hacker community is about. Like, my son's interested in it, and when I tell people at work or even close family, it's something he's interested in, it's something that I'm always interested in.
Right.
They kind of look at me and they're like, "No, don't let him go there." It's,
right.
And I think a lot of that came out in the documentary. That it's not about that stuff. It's more about
right. Yeah, I mean, along that line, so the movie really endeavors to show you the variety of activities, to the detriment of being a standard discovery, let's follow one guy's journey through this. And so it was very important to me to not shirk away from things like the excessive amount of drinking or the fact that there were a lot of women in bikinis, but also not to stop there and not to also say families come, people come who are speakers and care about the technology. There are people who their one joy is to keep soldering the whole weekend. People for whom, the competition is why they're there. One of the reasons that this film was made is there's some people who Defcon is a very singular experience. They come in, they work in the lockpick room all weekend, and then go home. Then other people who are in their hotel room the whole weekend. The film does an okay job of explaining just how deep and involved that mystery challenge is with the badge. That destroys 5 teams of people for 3 straight days.
Yeah.
It's brutal. And so it sort of shows it's there, but that's one thing, right? And so for those people, they've never been to the beverage cooling contest. They have no idea that there's this party that goes on over here, or the Defcon shoot, which is off-site, and the toxic barbecue. I have just words on the program for that. So I wanted to be very sure that this movie captured that variety. But the fact is the movie is too much con for one movie. And so I didn't want to turn it into a series like I've done with my previous films. So instead I made a very, very large film that goes in a lot of directions. That's a very, So one of the things that's most shocking to people is how much of it is kid-friendly. Especially shocking now to people who used to go to it 10 or 11, where it was not kid-friendly. Or one might say excessively kid-friendly. It's pure adolescent fountain of joy. But the fact that now it's got so much room for everybody is, to me, the critical piece.
Well, I think if you go to any conference in Vegas, you're going to see what you see as far as the drinking. And
oh, absolutely.
Yes, it's definitely more than, but the parties at night and things like that. It's there. It's there if you go to Orlando to a business conference.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And it's funny. A couple of people are like, "What have you shown us that isn't different from a dentist's conference?" I had a few people.
Oh, there you go.
And I'm like, there's things in there that are different. But it's funny. They get very. They're like, they don't quite see what's going on there, and I don't like to make a film that just has a narrator. I don't don't like narrators. So it just kind of lays it out for you. And some people watch this, and I've had this, some people watch this and go, that was great, now I never have to go. Because they know about it, it's exciting, they see what it is, but that's way too crowded, and I don't go to Las Vegas. But for them, they got to finally look into the Shark Tank and see what everything was like they'd heard about for years. A very similar thing to Burning Man. And so people, like, they experience that world, and then they're like, all right, cool, I don't have to go to this. Other people are seeing this, and they're like, well, I'm saving up for Vegas next year, and I hope a couple hundred people come because of this movie. It's funny because I remember some of the comments in YouTube, there was one guy who was like, what do we have to fill out to qualify to go? And somebody was like, you have to have $180.
Yeah. You have to have
cash in hand. And the guy was like, oh. You know, for him it was like, how do I qualify to be a part of this? So that was very exciting. Anyone have any other questions? I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to. Oh yes, sir.
I saw part of the film crew around. How large was the actual crew?
The crew was 3 camera people paired with 3 audio recorders. So a person would have an audio thing like this, and then there was a camera person on with a monopod. There was my producer, Rachel Levenger. She was her own person with her own camera. And then there was me with a camera and a recorder. The difference between all the rest of them and me is that I'm on a Segway. So all those crane shots you see are me zooming in on a Segway and then doing this, holding the camera out, and then applying stabilization to it. And so that's where those bizarre dolly shots come from, because I'll fly through, and I had to like zoom through places. We had an enormous, elaborate, we gave a presentation at DefCon about it, the video come out, but we had this massive spreadsheet where we tried to demarcate every event that happens at DefCon, who would be in it, what would represent telling that story, how important it was at priority level, and then what dates we think it is. Then we had a massive grid in the hotel room, which was our command center, that said, oh, Team Red, we have Team Red, Blue, and Green. It would say, Team Blue, you're going to go to the DEF CON shoot, but Team Red, I need you in front of the line to interview people. And then it would be like, who's going to get to go to the Facebook/Hacker Pimps party? Who's going to go to Hacker Jeopardy? And some of them got lots of coverage, like excessive amounts of coverage, to the point that you could see us in each of the shots. And then some of them, it was just pure damn luck that we happened to be in that place at that time and be like, whoa, hey, yeah, that's pretty cool. One of the things that will come out if you watch it and you notice that is that we're all wearing bright orange vests. All these wearing massive construction vests that say, you know, documentary on the back. The reason we did that was to foment the problem of DEF CON has had a 0 general recording policy for 20 years. Now we're going to break that utterly. How do we do that? And so what we came up with is let's dress the crew. Originally we were going to go with yellow and orange jumpsuits, but then we went for vests. Let's put them all in bright orange vests, and so you can't help but see them when they walk into a room. So in my raw footage, I have lots of shots where I do a shot like that and I see a person go like, oh man, and whatever, and I don't use any of those shots. So that person, or other people would see us there and be like, whoa, I'm not gonna go near those guys. We only had 3 people complain. We had only 1 person accused us of sexual assault. And it was like, we're really busy! If we did that, I don't know how! Physically. We had guys working 22 hours. You know, we had guys going to bed at 2 in the morning, waking up at 6 for another run, and just doing that every night. No time. But they, you know, we were able to be able to transfer stuff on the fly. We had really nice setup. We were able to record 32 hours at a stretch if we needed to, and we hoped that the community by 20 had mostly wrangled out the "do not know my name, for I am anonymous and I am Legion" folks. The ones who were like, no, you can't tell who I am. Those people have pretty much not. They don't consider DEF CON home anymore because DEF CON's too big. It's no longer cool. It's no longer anonymous. It's just this big party. So they don't go. They'll go to other things or not go to things or whatever. So they didn't go to, DEF CON DEFCON 20 is a whole other, it's a party. It's a Mardi Gras, hacker gras. And people either appreciate that or don't. So anyway, that's what we that's kind of how we approached it. And so I think like I said in the beginning, we recorded 236 hours at the event over the course of 5 days, and then another 40 hours of me interviewing people around the country. Because people like Jeff Moss and his lawyer, and Sherelle, and especially people like Stealth and Flea, they're going full out for 4 days. They have no time to sit down with me and interview. So that's what that is. So yeah, I mean, I look at the footage and I can tell you, it's to the point I can tell you which team is doing which shot, and it's pretty freaky, and it's not as easy as you might think, and it's not as obvious that like I love the speaker one because 4 different teams contributed to the speaker. The one with Render Man and with Dan Kaminsky. That one is like all these different teams that just happen to come together. One's from the back, one's in the front. And the fact that it even is vaguely cohesive is almost mystical to me. So that's that. It was fun. I mean, I had to push aside 3 other films for a year to do it. I gotta get back to those films now that I have been. But at the time, it was just delightful to get that opportunity. I've gone to DEFCON since DEFCON 9. Is that right? No, DEFCON 7. So I went to DEFCON 7 in 1999 when you saw that original footage, and I've been going every year except for one since. So for me, I felt like somebody in the community doing the filming really helped. Otherwise, it was just going to be a Discovery News Channel overview of like, there's hackers, there's hackers. That'd be DEFCON. So for some of you, for whom maybe DerbyCon's your first HackerCon, you're like, oh my god, there's this other thing. And a lot of us have said, part of the nice thing about DerbyCon is it feels kind of like an earlier DEFCON because of the relatively small size, but a lot of the same things and attributes, many of the same people. Many of them were in this film or here because they like it. So there's kind of an advantage to that. It's like a smaller DEFCON, not training with DEFCON, just a nice DEFCON with a size in which you could potentially see the majority of people you wanted to see at this event in 5 countries. Other questions? Okay. Oh, yes.
A comment and a sort of a procedural question. So
okay.
A comment. I am involved a lot in the performing arts, and this film really clarified to me the parallels between the hacker community ethos and the performing arts. So kudos to you on that, because I had understood them sort of generally, but I hadn't really clarified how the hacker ethos and the performing arts, meaning stage and screen performing arts, came together. So well done in that respect. And then the question is kind of rather dry. How does one find all of the ambient music necessary for a 2-hour film of this nature? Because it seems like it would be.
So I was given a budget. I was paid to do this film, which is why I pushed my other 3 films aside. So I pushed the other 3 aside, and the amount they paid me, I asked for it up front, allowed me to pay off all of my credit card bills completely. So I'm 100% debt-free for this movie. And that's very important to me. It took a lot of stress out of my life. And so, boom, I was already happy before a frame had been shot. But we were given a budget. The movie, I did this at the Q&A to confuse them. If we don't count my payment, the full budget for the film was $27,000. And again, like I said, Jeff went, wait, I didn't pay that amount. I paid more than that. It was like me. It was like a little lump of flesh that made the film happen. It was extra. But for $27,000, we were able to fly in people, buy some equipment. I hired a musician, Zoe Glade, who I'd worked with previously. She wrote the music at the end. She probably wrote me about 20 to 30 minutes of music, of which I probably used between 12 and 15 minutes of, she wrote a good body of music and then gave me access to her back catalog. I then went to attribution-only Creative Commons music, and in a worthy of diving into a French sewer level, listened to like hours and hours and hours of music. And you would look for an artist who went in a direction you liked, and then you would go try to find more of that artist's music. So I get a lot of people, it's funny, I get people who are like, I could not stand that drone soundtrack of crap. Like, people who are really angry at how that music ruined the experience for them. And then you get other people who are like, where do we get the soundtrack? Like, where's the list? Where can I download music? Yeah, that's you. You want that. Well, yeah, you're another one who wants that, but I get people from that all the time. So the key, the Defcon USB key, has all that music because it was all Creative Commons. But it also, like for instance, there's a piece of music in there. It's the one that plays Saturday night with the bounce, 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 bounce. And that's a guy called The Insider. It's called The Insider's Theme. It was like his theme music. And he did a few other pieces that I really liked that were these, whatever. But then there was an artist who did, and my relationship to music is different than yours, so I just think of it as rhythmics, or timbre. But the one when they're talking about T-shirts, which is like, just like reggae almost feel. That artist produced all of this enjoyable, twisted, fun music. And so once I found them, I was like, well, let's just grab all 30 of their songs, and I think I used 4. And some of them were luck. Some of them were luck. I'd happened upon something where it was like they had one piece of good music that I could use. And then I kind of pieced them together that way. So in terms of music, I'm very loose about music. I don't like people composing for my films because I'm too weird. And I don't always know what I want. And sometimes it can surprise you. Sometimes I'll take 100 pieces of music. I've done this where I'll take maybe, let's be more realistic, 30 to 40 pieces of music. And I leave somebody on a loop talking. And then I just bang over pieces of music to see if they make me feel differently than just what I thought would be good. If you have someone sad and you play sad music, right? So for instance, the music for the NSA sequence, which gets different emotional reactions than when I edited it. I edited it, here's the thing, so I edited it, then the shit broke. Then I was like, I had an opportunity there. I could have excised the sequence, but what I'm very happy of and I'm very proud of is that thing never advocates that the NSA is good. What it does very specifically say is Defcon has now grown to the point that even the NSA feels they got to send their top guy to talk to us. And some people are not happy that he is there, and other people are like, that's fascinating that he is here. And we even have that wonderful sequence of Jason Street making him do an awkward hug, right? Which is, outside the community, it's funny because that sequence plays different people. If you're inside the community, or you're like, oh God, Jason Street made him do an awkward hug. I like it because it shows that the NSA is in such a wanting to deal with us that they'll even pander to this bizarre thing. I mean, Keith Alexander is like, all right, I guess this is what hackers do. This is a multi-star general, right? I mean, that is, for the people who come from like Derby and I went to a military background, to watch a multi-star general be grabbed bodily by the leg. It's like, holy shit. But his appearance in it, I decided could be interpreted in 9 or 6 different neutral ways. Fine. In fact, one of the things I'm really big on as an editor, what you're saying there is, you can watch it as a performing arts person and pull out a different movie. You don't get stuck along the rails and have to be like, oh, there's something for me. A really good example of that was that there was originally going to be a sexism sequence, an explicit sexism sequence, so to speak. And I have interviews and everything else, and I decided it was just too weird because too much of the movie is a big hug. And it's like hug. It's like a film about a person. You're like, he's awesome. He beats up women, but he's so awesome for like the next 30 minutes. People are like. So instead, I bred sexiness and raciness and drunkenness and over-partying and everything else into the film as the fabric of what it's like to go to Defcon. So some people see the partying and go, this is the place for me. But I've also shown it to people who are like, so I can't go unless I wear a bikini. Or, Jesus, I didn't know I would have to, drink like a frat freshman on pledge night to be able to go to a security conference. And I let them all fall where it may, like it would with the film. I mean, if you went to Defcon and you went to the party and you were like, nobody can see here. They are all drunken and blind. See ya. And then other people were like, there's my seat. I made sure that it leaves it for you. That was a big thing with, cutting it. So there's a lot of that in the film. a lot of weirdness in the film, a lot of fun in the film, and everything else. And for some people, whenever I get, either people really love it, or I get people who are like, what is that? What was that? Right? Or some people want me to have done a plot-driven film. We watch a person go to Defcon. We watch as they're slowly, and by the end they've got a mohawk and 15 t-shirts and are stumbling into the sun. And I decided I didn't want to make that film. That's not the film I make. Instead I'm like, let's pack. I mean, there's over 55 separate events that are covered in a film that's 1 hour and 50 minutes. That's a little tough. That's a lot of film. But yeah, I mean, so I'm happy I did it. I would do it again. Maybe I would, I didn't have enough shots of people walking in the hallways. That's what my only regret. Was that I wish I had more hallway shots. I had to really push it. Terrible. How will I survive? Any other questions? I take general philosophy.
Actually, you brought up you were there since 7.
7, yeah.
Do you feel like it's changed over time?
Yeah, of course.
I do.
Absolutely.
Kind of matured or thinking.
A little different now. I would not call it the same con except for the same people run it. There are things that feel almost like somebody tripped and dropped a drink, and 10 years later in that same spot they now have a banner ad-sponsored drop your drink contest with best of and recorded. Like it's really more, everything has been kind of ossified and solidified in a way that, back then, I mean, and I knew this film could have totally captured like that feeling of walking through the Alexis Park at 2 in the morning. You're like, this is the fall of Rome. This is where it ends. This is where, huh?
Pool 2 girls.
See, I referenced Pool 2 in a subtle and friendly manner, and some people hear the word Pool 2 and they go, and those are for people who were there. But if you haven't worked there, you go, oh, there was a pool, and people were really into that pool. And so there's a couple little things in there that I stuck in for people who are part of the community to see that person on screen or to see that mentioned. But then a person who had never been there would go, oh, that's interesting, and they would derive something from it. Always trying to get double value. So Pool 2, Pool 3, mentioning how
There was
terrible.
something that went on there that.
What?
I wasn't there, but I got it in the film. There's something that went on there that was very different from what's going on now.
Very much so.
It's Fight Club.
It's like Mardi Gras.
Talk about Fight Club.
It's like Mardi Gras fell into a centrifuge and they took the part over here that had been separated out.
And it was right about the time they were trying to
I'll talk
make Vegas family friendly.
So there's definitely an aspect of that. And so as DEFCON, to me, DEFCON 20, even, like I said, if you go from anywhere from 27 to 3,500 people, especially with the median age being, let's go with, I was an old guy then, so even then I was like 10 years ahead of a lot of the 20-year-olds, so it was, we're talking about, the median age being like anywhere between 22 and 25. The older ones at that point have been in the biz for about 4 or 5 years. There's a real sense of like, oh, we're going to go with standards. But on the other hand, you have people who are like 16, 17, 18 who were going to that thing. I was shown some footage recently, actually. Somebody was like, oh, I have some footage. I really didn't want anybody to regret being in this film. I didn't want anybody to regret having seen themselves in the film, even though they didn't know they were being filmed. So the film is very, very carefully set up to do that. But there's this awesome tape. I'm trying to figure out how to tell this story without being terrible. What do you think? So, a buddy of mine had a conference room, had a condo room there, and he's gay, and he had a lot of young men there. And he is a very egregious and friendly individual, right? So people would come. If he saw, that's how I met him. The way I met him was that I was almost having a heat stroke outside. I totally misjudged. So I was like, he goes, dude, come on with me. And I go in, there's all these young men draped around, sitting around talking. And he said, take what you need. And it was like this massive thing of fruit juices and stuff. And I felt so much better. And I talked to him, and it was really nice. And we've known each other now ever since then. Really good buddies. I see him every year for a few weeks. Great times, right? So I was visiting him recently, and he said he was just sitting there playing some stuff, and he said, "Oh yeah, here's some film I had from that time." And I was like, "Oh my God, I would have loved to have gotten that footage. Wouldn't that be neat to have, people hanging around talking and everything like that?" And he goes, "Yeah, this is when the girls came in." I was like, "Really?" Into the gay men's choir, okay. And it turned out there were like 4 girls who had stripped naked, who were swimming in the hot tub. And the hotel had an issue with this and said, "Please leave." So they all got up naked and walked away and passed this open condo, and he was like, come on in, hang out." So they all came in and sat down with these young gay men, chatting with them, and he's just filming this. Naked women talking to gay men, having drinks and pleasant fruit surprises, and just hanging out. And I'm like, that is a very special moment. I could not have possibly put that in the movie. But it was that kind of stuff where you would just run into these events, and you'd walk into a room, and of course, they own the hotel, so the doors would all be open. Like, you'd walk by a hotel room, and you'd walk by, and it would be like Ghost in the Shell in somebody's room. And then there were other ones. Oh, and I should mention that they, because of the crowding issue, they pumped all the talks into the hotel cable system. So you could sit in your room and watch all 4 tracks from your room, which some people took as a methodology to literally pickle themselves. I mean, just galactic Olympics drink and destroy the drinking planet of, Bab 7 with their ability to imbibe. And they're just watching talks, sitting in their shorts with the door open, like, come on in, hang out with me. And it's just, like, wow. And so the videos come out later, and what the group did was they went down to a local store, I think in Circuit City, and they bought 3 TiVos, and they hooked them up to televisions and recorded all the channels, and then returned the TiVos at the end of the weekend for being defective, and then put all the videos up like within 48 hours because they had hooked into the cable system. And every piece of Defcon goes that far and that deep in every direction. Caesar's Challenge, where you would have to answer these amazing questions and brilliant people would meet up, or government policy being discussed by some agents who would just love to get a little bit of realistic, like, we hear this can be done, can this even be done? Or other people, like, getting jobs and, like, sitting in a hot tub with a dude, and the dude being like, I need a pen tester. You're a pen tester. All right, well, give me a call on Monday. And that layer of it is different now. It's very different. I mean, Facebook sponsored the party. That was the big ninja party. Google pays in. Who else does? A couple other big names, like, drop money in. There's a real tension between security industry and black hat hackers and how are we going to have this. The black and white ball used to be a big party, but then that got rejiggered into a black night and a white night for parties, and then it became a sponsored event, and so on. And then we had Crystal Method play last year. You see them for 1 millisecond in there because we didn't get it right. Somebody went in. Oh, I'm going to stop talking, see if there's a question when we're done. But I forgot to mention when I was talking about what cameras I used. We did one other thing. We bought 10 Kodak GoPros equivalents, little handhelds, and we would put numbers on them. We would hand them to somebody, and it'd be like, "Go film your Defcon. See you in a day." That's how we had that overnight shot of the line where they were getting more and more wrecked. One of my friends was like, "Wow, I can't believe you sat there and filmed them." And I was like, "No. We left it with them, and they filmed themselves getting wrecked." And the butt getting paddled, that came back to me. But that was a good example. That was one of the few times where footage came back and I was like, oh! Because what's not in there is that before the paddling, somebody carved EFF with a knife into this ass. And then hit them with a paddle. So there's this other footage, because of course I hadn't seen that footage at the end of the show, where I'm filming and they're showing me a paddle, because each of the goons, there were 20 paddles, goon paddles, That's at Defcon 20, and it was a kid. You see one where the guy's sitting there like that for 1 second. And so there's a reference to that paddle. But there's this other footage, and I've done, by my estimate, roughly 370 interviews in my filming career. And I have filmed a lot. I've seen a lot of things. And they had this thing. I said, okay, I'm going to take a nice arty shot with my camera of this thing. And I go right in, and I notice that it is just blood splatter. And you can hear me on the footage go, Jesus Christ! Like, it was the last thing I expected. I was like, oh,
One ass, one paddle.
Huh?
One ass, one paddle.
One ass, one paddle. So that was one case where I was like my training. So there's some of that, right? That's just a weird other aspect to it, but it is so minimized. But we did get some of that footage in there. So that did happen to some relevance, so I took the asset because I thought it was fun. I mean, like I said, that artistic sequence where the music goes wrong, and you start seeing like disturbing image after disturbing image, the zombie girl, the pedo bear, and everything else. I thought that might work. I wanted to do drunken blackouts for the Hacker Jet.
It's Friday night, right?
Friday night, yeah. Friday night one where we just like.
That's the Las Vegas. Anyone who's been to a thing in Las Vegas, sales conference, CES, whatever it is, understands that the first night everyone gets there ends with that kind of.
Yeah, they just can't see it. They overhype it, they can't do it, and that's why the next morning is this Saturday, probably.
The 9 o'clock keynote is, all seats are available.
Yeah, all seats are available. There's usually one person there just like that. And then there's just one nerdy dude who's like, I'm getting this environment.
Coming by you as you're going back to go to
The ones that come to the Starbucks like, hey, good morning.
Oh, it's so nice to be here. Any questions or comments?
Is it for sale?
It is for sale, although I don't know why you want to buy it. There's a torrent of it. No, there's an official torrent of the full movie. There's a bonus feature set. The advantage of you can buy it from, if you go to defcon.org, there's a link where you can buy it. They sell 2 different items, although they weren't very committed to selling this, which is why I was very happy to take a lump sum ahead of time, because I just knew they weren't going to be aggressive like I'm aggressive with my films. So they sold 2 different items. They sold a USB key with a lanyard that has the movie and soundtrack, and they sold a lunchbox, which had a hard drive in it that had all the previous talks and all the previous programs, and it was like $200. And people they thought they were going to sell 50. I know they sold at least 200, which is amazing to me. But they were never geared towards total. I mean, when he was shooting it, Jeff announced it was going to be for free the next year. Yeah. Like he announced that. That was a big deal to him. So you can buy the USB key. But like I said, people have certainly torrented all the content. There's another 16 bonus pieces of footage that I put in there. Like stuff, if your story goes on for 3 minutes, even if it's awesome, I can't put it in the movie. Yeah. So there's a few 3-minute stories in there. We saw one in the beginning where someone talked about, and it makes more sense now that you've seen the movie, that they walked into the Alexis Park and they walked into one room and somebody had knocked down and reframed 2 suites into 1. And they're like, nobody's going to believe this happened. And it was just like, yep. And I have another one, which is an amazing story, Peggy and Her Hackers, where her son was 16 or 17, and her father, her husband took him to Defcon, and the next year he was now 17, so he could go himself. So he insisted his 15-year-old brother come with him, and the 2 of them went. And then 2 years later, the youngest, by 2 years from the second brother, came as well. So now it was 3 of them. And then a few years later, here she was coming for the first time on the 20th. And she's like, oh, I met this Dan Kaminsky they talk about, and oh, I got to meet this person, and that's really cool. And so she knew all these names because her 3 sons had gone, and now the daughter was coming. So it was like a kind of a neat story to see how she's, this family, they put that in. So there's a lot of that. I mean, I knew going in there was no chance of lack of material. That was not a problem. So that's a very encouraging thing. Sometimes you go into a documentary film. I'm doing a documentary on the 6502 chip. That's my current major project. That's a very specific thing. My challenge is I'm going to make the first documentary where you will understand assembly language programming by the end, regardless of who you are. That's a challenge. I like that. But like I never knew that Defcon wouldn't be an entertaining film. So that I was like, yeah, there's a movie there. There's a good movie there. Anyway, so yeah, no, it's for sale. But like I said, they torrented it. They have it on the site as a torrent. The Internet Archive has a copy. The Pirate Bay has a copy. Currently rocking 5 out of 10 on IMDb. IMDb is hilarious. Yeah, 5 out of 10. It's got 2 scathing reviews, like eyeball peeling reviews. Total waste. The other one is called 10 out of 10 on the smug meter. You know, they're like, some people don't want to watch a party on film. They're like, why am I being forced to watch a party? You know, again, when you create, also the other thing is that DEFCON is such a hyped thing, like it's in press for years, that a lot of people are just no interest in the hacker community, no appreciation of that being a valid endeavor, and no interest in technical parties as being something cogent, are watching it and being like, I still do not get this. I do not like this. Sam, I am. So that's been a new education. Over 200,000 people that I know have seen this film, like watching the numbers go by. So big audience, a lot of people, but it's no Duck Dynasty. It will never be Duck Dynasty.
I can't get a Jason Scott T-shirt at Walmart.
Huh?
I can't get a Jason Scott T-shirt at Walmart.
Exactly. What have I done? Yeah, you'll also know that if you, I think you see me twice in the film with this. I have a cowboy hat on, because I was like, I need to be even more annoying and loud. So I'm in a cowboy hat, bright orange vest, on a Segway, like just shooting through crowds at 20 miles an hour. There's bonus footage where I figured out after a while about the backroom access tunnels to get around the convention center so I wouldn't hit people. So I could just go at like ludicrous speed through the back. And there's a sequence where I go around the entire convention center on the outside access tunnel at 25 miles an hour, just shooting past people working there who could not care less, and then just shooting out. And it's on YouTube with Mario music, but it was fun. And so both getting good shots and being able to do dolly and being able to get from one place to another to find out, because we had radios, they'd be like, Jason, we really need more people. There's a drone. There's a drone in exhibit room C. And I was like, drone? And that's how I got there. Yeah, so good times. DerbyCon documentary is all good time. The magic of DerbyCon. Is that it? I think we got everybody. Okay. Unless anybody else had anything else, I'm more than happy. I'll certainly be around. I'm not a fly-by night. I will be around all weekend. I'm flying out Sunday. So I'm around if you want to hang out and talk. I am not interested in making a movie with you. I am book solid until 2015 or 16. I'm doing 3 films. One is on the 6502 chip. One is on the medium of tape, magnetic tape, for the last 60 years. And the third one is on the place of arcades, the location and the environment of arcades. Because we've had an awful lot done on the machines themselves.
Okay. The 6502 sounds really cool. With the mag tape, actually, didn't know about that one, but I've heard that.
Jason.
The best part is putting up those 3 subjects, and I get people for, man, A is amazing. I can't believe you're going to waste time on B and C. Well, when we can get the A movie better, like it's that way for all 3. People are like, tape, oh, you got me at tape, hey, but I don't know, man, arcade movie, what the hell, why do you do that?
Yeah.
Jason, you mean you won't produce my history of shock sites?
That's, well, anyway.
I'll